quite the groove we had when Craig Braddick joined us just a few minutes ago when we were looking at a little bit something we'll get into later on. Shawn and I were checking out a little bit of DJ Cassidy with Nelly. It's getting hot in here, so let's just take that theme and let's make this a hot show. What do you guys say?
Absolutely.
As you can see on the screen tonight, we have Turf Paradise race caller Craig Braddick with us. How are you tonight, Craig?
I'm great, Rich. Thank you for having me here, and wonderful to be with you and Shawn.
Thanks for coming. How was the day today at Turf Paradise? Last night we were talking about, before we came live, our guest last night, CC Perkinson, had a racehorse today. Prince Ali found its way to the winner's circle. Tell us a little bit about that race.
Oh, that was a great race because the horse came from off a pace, was perfectly produced on the outside of the field at the right time. You could see the horse making a move with about 5/16 or a mile to go. Had to come around the houses a little bit, but I was so happy for CC Perkinson to get into the winner's circle. She doesn't have many horses at Turf Paradise, but she's obviously doing pretty good with the few starters she's got going there. And it's wonderful to see not only, smaller trainers like her doing well at Turf Paradise, but we've got some bigger names there. Jonathan Wong is going really well at the moment, and he's got a full-time stable at Turf Paradise right now. Brian Pena is coming back in, flying into Turf Paradise on weekdays before going up to Golden Gate on weekends. And it's good to see here at Turf Paradise. We've got an increase in purse money for this meet, up 30% over last year. And you're beginning to see now bigger field sizes. I think over the coming months, there's going to be a lot of great wagering opportunities for people out there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One of the things about Turf Paradise, speaking of wager opportunities, whenever we're going to do a live show, Terry and I, where we make our picks for Turf Paradise, people always tell us things like Godspeed, good luck. So what are some of the angles that you see calling every race that horse bettors, maybe little subtle things that they should be looking for in horses when they make their picks?
So the first thing to remember is we relayed the dirt track for this meet. So angles that have worked in previous years are a little bit different. Similarly, we let the grass grow out on the turf track over the summer, but kept it cut, okay? So the turf track has developed really strong roots. Right now, we're starting to see the dirt track settle down. Early in the meet, the horses with a low post position were not doing so well. And the horses who were on the pace early were lasting home, as opposed to horses who were coming from off the pace. Now that the track has settled in and we've been racing for nearly 2.5 months, we're starting to see that settle down and play a little bit more like the old Turf Paradise, where late closers begin doing very well. You've probably seen the opening quarter times and the half-mile times at Turf are always very quick. We're talking 21, 22 seconds, even for lower end claimers in a one-turn race. And so we've been starting to see that angle again. One of the angles that did work well in the past was horses going from Grants Pass and Emerald Downs down to Turf Paradise. But if you remember in the fall, there was a lot of bad weather in the Northwest, and those horses have taken 3 or 4 starts to get going at Turf Paradise. So it's worth checking back. If you look at the daily racing form past performances, you'll begin seeing a lot of horses who were in the Northwest during the summer. Now they've had 3 or 4 starts at Turf Paradise. They're starting to hit their stride again. Another angle that we are seeing increasingly is horses that have come all the way from tracks like Mountaineer and Presque Isle Downs as well, out on the East Coast. And, 5 or 6 of those horses have come up in the last couple of weeks and performed really well. But we're getting into the part of the season now where we have a lot of good stakes races coming up. Because of the increase in purse money, a lot of our stakes races, but at the last meet, were black type. They now are black type. And we're beginning to see, in the past at Turf Paradise, California Raiders would come in and take the bigger stakes races on a frequent basis. But now we have enough purse money that these California horses are not just coming in and out, they're actually staying around for the meet. So it's really a case, I think, for handicappers everywhere to look at the past performances, because we're getting more horses engaging in battles against each other. And as the meet warms up, you're going to see a lot more of that as we go forward. I think the track is normalizing itself after the first 2 months of the meet now. And hopefully as we go forward, we're going to begin seeing horses who like to lay off the pace making a late move, but still expect front runners to go very quickly early on.
They always do.
Hey, Craig, I got a couple questions. One, you put your picks out every race. You had guest handicapper Gabriel from Live and Breathe Facebook group today. How are your picks going, and how did you do against Gabe today?
Gabe actually edged me, I think, by a couple of horses today. You know, one of the things about being a race caller is, you know, I grew up in the UK where race callers tend to do a lot of research the night before. But there's a big difference between doing the research you need to call a race as opposed to actually handicapping a race. And the way I approach the handicapping at Turf Paradise on our TV show is not so much, hey, I'm going to talk to you for 3 minutes and tell you everything you need to know. Because I think people are capable of making up their own minds. So the approach I take is, imagine we were all sitting down at a bar at an OTB, or, you know, we were around the computer watching, and I might give 2 or 3 little thoughts about, you know, 3 or 4 horses that we could sum up in a sentence or 2. And then my approach is then to give the horse players that breathing room, if you will. Okay, I put a few ideas in your mind, but why don't you guys go with it and run with it yourselves, as opposed to me preaching from my ivory tower what horse I think is necessarily the best horse in the race. I will mention that, but I'm not going to go gung-ho on it. I think it's really important that those of us who are privileged to work in the horse racing media never underestimate the intelligence and the creativity of horse players. And I don't like to step too much into their lane. I'll add a few little thoughts of my own, but I think you've got to respect horse players enough to let them make their own minds. They don't want to be bludgeoned over the head with opinions, say the least my opinions.
Okay. I actually have another question, and it's actually an opinion on a jockey that's joined you guys. He was riding in China. I've talked to him. He supported Horse Racing Radar when we had it. Fausto Enrique. He's been it's De Silva is his last name.
Silva,
yeah. He said somehow it's signed in and got that. He's actually been racing really well. What kind of rider have you thought of him and his style?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of good jockeys that have come from Brazil over the years. They have a lot of turf racing down there, and rather like the racetracks in the UK, they're undulating. I'm sorry, I've got my dog here, and he's kind of
beautiful. My chubby blonde girlfriend's usually off to the side, my Labrador, but she's not there today.
So you can definitely see with Fausto da Silva like a South American European influence, especially when he rides on the turf. He stands very tall in the irons like a European jockey does. He seems to have a very good clock in his head, especially in the turf races. You can certainly see him because his backside's always the highest one of all the jockeys at Turf Paradise when he's riding a race. He appears to me to be the complete package. I actually had a friend of mine who had a horse in today at Turf Paradise who ran 5th. I'm not going to mention the horse because we didn't have Fausto da Silva on the horse today, but I'm going to recommend they book Fausto next time. He's a really great addition to the jockey colony. He rode out in Macau before coming over to America, and obviously he got his start in Brazil as well. And when you look over the decades, there's been some great Brazilian jockeys. In fact, Peter Lurie and I were talking about that on TVG the other day. Braulio Beza, for an example, who became a racing official here in America when his jockey career ended. If you go back and look on YouTube at the 1972 Benson and Hedges Gold Cup at York, he rode Epsom Derby winner Roberto, and in one race, not only did he defeat the unbeaten Brigadier Gerard, but also he took the ride on Roberto from the great Lester Piggott. And Lester was in his prime in those days. And there aren't many jockeys out there who could claim 2 scalps like that in one race. So it's great to see Fausto da Silva here continuing that tradition of great Brazilian jockeys. But we're very lucky here at Turf Paradise. I think we have a very eclectic mix of jockeys, and I think there's plenty of jockeys you can root for. Young Joey Scriver, who was the leading apprentice jockey here in the spring, is doing very well now. She's lost her allowance and making good headway. Alex Cruz is going very well. Lindy Wade has been an absolute sensation coming in from the Oklahoma circuit and is currently our leading jockey as well. And he's getting a lot of rides for Robertino Diodoro and also for Justin Evans. And it's really interesting because Justin Evans, you associate with New Mexico. I was speaking to his wife last week, and they're going to hang around at Turf Paradise for the duration. Their owners really like the races here at Turf Paradise. Sunland Park perhaps isn't in the best state at the moment from a racing perspective. A lot of their purse money is down, especially for non-New Mexico bred horses. So it's great that we're getting attention from really all over the world right now.
So speaking of all over the world, you've basically called different kinds of racing from all over the world: Arabian horses, quarter horses, thoroughbreds, steeplechase. I mean, all of the above. Which one would you say from and from what I read too, you like to tell the story? Mm-hmm. Which is the one I would imagine that the quarter horses are probably the hardest to tell a story because the race is over like that. But in terms of developing the story, the arc, the climax, and then the finish, which would you say is the hardest to call?
From that viewpoint, obviously quarter horses for the reasons you said. The next thing would be maiden races, where obviously you don't have an idea, especially if they're babies or inexperienced horses. You don't know their running style. A large part of my homework, every night before racing, I take the program, but it looks like this. You can't really see it, but it's like a printer's copy of the program, and I have like a little rubber stamp of a jockey, and I color in the silks for it, and then I put like a plus or a minus sign. If the horse is a front running type, I put a plus sign. If it's a late closer, I put a minus sign. So I work out the kind of pace scenarios in my head, and then really what I try and do in the race call is it's almost like a 3-act play. There's the start where there's an inciting incident, there's protagonist, there's antagonist, and then there's like 3 acts through the race: the beginning, the middle, and the end, and eventually, of course, the climax of the race, and the race is won or lost. And it's really interesting because when I was younger, and I started going to racetracks to practice calling when I was 12 years old, which was over 30 years ago now. And as time has gone on, when I was younger, for some reason, it was a lot easier to spot the winners half a mile out. And in a strange way, as time goes by, you kind of like lose that little sort of childhood wonder with it. But I try to keep it and try and tell the story of the race, because I think it's really boring just to go through abacus race calling. First is so-and-so, second is so-and-so, third is so-and-so. And in any race of, say, 5 furlongs or more, you can drop in a little bit of the story. Obviously, steeplechase racing, where, there are some races I'm calling where there's over 20 horses in a race and they're going 4 miles. And sometimes that race can last, 10, 11 minutes. Then you've got a lot more time to discuss what's going on. But in many ways, quarter horse racing is actually as tactical as a 4-mile steeplechase. It's just different things you got to look out for. I love calling quarter horse racing, and I would be happy to call an entire quarter horse meet. It's the one aspects of racing we don't have in the UK. We don't have quarter horse racing over there, and so it's something I've really embraced here in America.
I call it the popcorn races or the ping pong ball races because it kind of reminds me of those lottery machines. Bing, 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 bing. And this is the one that comes out on the other end. So I read that you knew at 8 years old this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
How do you know at 8 years old you want to be a track announcer?
Well, my dad was a semi-professional gambler when I was a little kid. And then he became a full-time gambler. We grew up very close to Newmarket, which is like the Churchill Downs of the UK. And pretty much ever since I can remember, I was fascinated by were track announcers. And when I was a little kid, I had a speech impediment, and I found by imitating the track announcers, I noticed my speech got better. And so, I began when I was like 7, 8 years old. Horse racing is covered on TV very widely in the UK. So I would turn the sound down on the television set and begin practicing into a tape recorder. And then by the time I was 12, 13, I was going out to tracks all over the UK, often sneaking on trains to do so, that kind of thing. And a lot of the race callers took me under their wing and allowed me to use spare commentary boxes, as we call them in the UK. And I got a really good schooling in calling races and learning about race calling from commentators who started in the 1950s and 1960s, when we didn't have televisions in the announcer's booth. And so to learn that way was probably the best way. I look back now and I think that I was lucky to catch, if you like, the first generation of race callers in the UK and learn from them at an age where you just absorb everything. And to be able to carry that forward now, it is a wonderful thing. It's, you never work a day in your life if you're doing something you love. And that's certainly the case with me. I adore race calling and being part of horse racing, but ultimately I can never do justice with my words to the beauty and grace of a horse. And it doesn't matter whether it's a $3,000 claimer or a graded stakes race.
Now, you said that you're grateful to be able to carry it forward. You were telling us a little bit before the show. Now it's your turn to help somebody else carry it forward next week at Turf Paradise. Tell us about this exciting guest coming to Turf Paradise next week to help you out.
So about 6 months ago, there was an article in the Racing Post in the UK, which is our equivalent of a daily racing forum, asking why there were no female race callers in the UK. And I put on there, well, if there is a female race caller out there and they can show me they can do the job, I'd be happy to have them come and be a guest caller. And a young lady called Danny Jackson, who works for the William Hill organization in the UK, actually does greyhound commentaries for them and presents their racing coverage, got in touch with me on Twitter. And she had been mentored by a couple of guys in the UK who back in the day mentored me when I was a teenager. So we had that link. And I was so impressed when she sent me some of her race calls, but she was going out to the race courses and practicing. Of course, we have big old race courses in the UK, but are far bigger than the tracks in America in circumference. And she was calling these races through binoculars with no monitor and doing a great job. And so, over the last few months, I've been encouraging her and saying, you've got to come out to Turf Paradise. And she's taking the plunge. She actually arrives tomorrow night. She's going to be staying with me and my girlfriend. On Friday, we're going to show her around Turf Paradise, and she'll get to meet the racing officials and so on. And then next week, she's going to be calling half the races every day. And on Tuesday, when we're on TVG for 8 races and on Sky Sports Racing and Sky Australia, she's going to be calling the entire card. And we're really looking forward to having Danny Jackson over from the UK. With respect to some of the female race callers we've had here in the United States who have done a good job, I truly think that Danny is in a different league. And I think people will be very impressed with her race calling skills.
Well, we look forward to that next week. Speaking of next week, Shawn at the top mentioned that you had the head-to-head showdown today. Well, damn it, we want a head-to-head showdown too. So when can horse racing today go against Greg Braddick? Yeah.
We will definitely hook you guys up for that. As soon as Danny leaves town at the end of next week, because she's going to be doing our paddock analysis for us all next week as well. But we'd love to have you guys on as guest handicappers, and we can definitely make that happen.
Sure, we'll be back in touch with you to make that happen. If other folks want to get in touch with you, I understand you're a social media guru. You handle the stuff for Turf Paradise. Any suggestions that you can help us out with our social media? What would be the number one?
I'd be happy to help you out in any way I can. If you guys want to get in touch with that, people can follow me on Twitter at Calls the Races, and I do have a couple of picks for tomorrow if I can share with you guys.
Well, we were going to ask you. I was going to say, because another challenge was we had a Turf Paradise guest on last night. CZ Perkinson gave us the winner, so there's a lot of pressure on you today, Craig.
A lot of pressure. Okay, so I'm going to suggest a a trifecta play in race 8 tomorrow, okay? And I would box this trifecta, and I'm going to go for the 5, the 6, and the 8. The 5 Winter Star from the barn of Esteban Martinez, Alex Cruz on board. This horse was a little disappointing last time out in an $8,500 claimer over 1 mile on the turf at Turf Paradise. Tomorrow, it's a 7.5 furlong race on the turf. I think the horse will appreciate the slightly shorter distance. The claiming tag tomorrow again is 6,500 or 8,500, I beg your pardon, or 10,000 for Arizona breds. I'm going to go with that one with the number 6 Silly Notion, trained by Jeff Metz, Lindy Wade, leading jockey in a meet on that one. That horse has a case of seconditis right now, has been second on its last 2 starts. And then the number 8 Spicy Sommelier, who's 6-1 on the morning line. Hello, Toby. You okay, buddy? Yeah. And
he's agreeing with you. That's it. He's like, yes, I'm on these picks. He's like, how do I make some money?
So when I was the announcer back at Arapahoe Park back in the day, I had a dog called Tanner H. Dog, who was a Beagle Jack Russell mix. And we did dog picks one day. And we had him in the television studio with us. And the amount of times he licked my face when I asked him what horse was going to win denoted the number. And of course, he got 5 winners on the day, and I only got 2.
That's how it always works.
Anyway, my third pick to round off that trifecta, the number 8 Spicy Sommelier, Isaias Enriquez on board for my friend Marilee Herrera, the owner, Scott Rollins, the trainer. This horse was a winner 3 starts back earlier in the meet here at Turf Paradise. Did not get the run of the race last time when it finished 4th. The way how the pace scenario sets up for this race, I think this is a horse who can tuck itself behind the leaders. And if it is 6-1 come post time, I would be all over that for a win bet.
So just to recap, race 8, the 5, 6, and 8 trifecta box tomorrow. We'll replay this on the show with Terry and I in the morning to get started, to give out that pick as well. So we're gonna knock the odds down on all those horses.
Yeah, I mean, CC went from 10-1 to 4-1, so the word got out.
Yes, it did indeed. All right, we do appreciate you joining us tonight, Craig. We'll definitely, like I said, we'll be showing that. We'll be back in touch for the head-to-head competition, and if I win, maybe I'll come down there and I'll try to call the race and embarrass the hell out of myself.
Well, you're more than welcome. It's like I tell people, if you think you can do a better job, you
oh, no, I can't do a better job. I can do a better job making a fool of myself, that's for sure.
Craig, I think you do a great
job. Very well, believe me.
I think you do a great job with your enthusiasm and the way you take care of your fans. And I mean, you can hear it in your call. Great call.
I appreciate
do like your calls too.
Thank you for having me on, guys.
Thank you for coming tonight. Have a fantastic day tomorrow. Good week next week with your guest, and I'm sure she's going to knock it out of the park.
Oh, yeah. Sure, I'll no longer be the best British race caller at Turf Paradise, that's for sure.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
This is another fun interview, Shawn, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
Another good guest there for sure. Good learning some good stuff about Turf Paradise and how to pick winners there. Got to keep the headphone in my ear so I can actually hear. Well, it's not that I can't hear, but when you only have one headphone in,
it's weird.
One side, it's really kind of weird. So I don't. It's kind of until you do it. It's kind of.
I've done it the last 2 shows actually. The last 5 minutes, one of them falls out. So
I see. Yeah. So all right. Well, let's get to the news of the day, Shawn. So one of the things that you sent me a note on, and this is probably going to be big news to our friend Terry, is Grants Pass. Tell us a little bit about what's going on at Grants Pass. They had this whole new project that they invested in or were proposing that's supposed to bring horse racing, into the big leagues up in Oregon, but it's in a little bit of trouble maybe.
Yeah. And if they don't get it passed and they don't agree to it, I guess that's the end of racing at Grants Pass. So yeah, Terry I didn't know if I wanted to send that email or not to break his heart there, but hopefully everything's good and racing stays. We need as many tracks as we can get.
So if you are a Grants Pass fan, I guess probably I don't know that they would really pay attention to you and I because I live in Chicago. You live in
I was going to say, I think you need to live in. Yeah.
But if you live in Oregon or you live in that neighborhood or you know somebody who lives in that neighborhood, I will link to this letter on horseracingtoday.net in the recap of this show. So just look for the date. Click on that link. There's a bunch of contacts there. Make sure you let them get your voice heard, right? You pay taxes if you live in that area. And if you're a horse racing fan and you want to see the Grants Pass expand, And I was reading an analysis a little bit earlier in the day about the thousands of jobs that are going to be lost if this doesn't come through. So it's good for economics. It's good for people who are looking for work, and it's good for horse racing. Hopefully it is a win-win-win-win, Shawn. So make
Yeah,
sure
I mean,
that you do, if you're in the area, you act.
yeah, I mean, some people don't want horse racing because of horses, but I mean, that gives horses more lives sometimes, having the horse racing. So it affects all the way around, like you said.
I haven't really met anybody in this business for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there's some like any other business, Shawn, but the horses
Not
are.
in this business, not in this business, but outside of this business,
I'm saying there are people in the business who probably don't, cut corners and stuff like that, like any other business. And, they do things that they ought not be doing to try to get a cheap, fast buck. But for the most part, the people that we've come across, the people we deal with, they want the best for the horses, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, some people aren't even making the money. They're doing it for the love of the sport and the love of the horses.
For the love of the animal, Shawn. Speaking of the love of the animal, the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authority named a CEO today. Her name is Lisa Lazarus. She is the chief executive officer now, put in charge of implementing these new programs so that, as she puts it, she looks forward to working with an impressive and diverse array of independent and industry experts at HISA to make racing safer and fairer for all. Shawn, do you think that this HISA, this Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Authorization Act, is going to have the intended outcome?
Probably not. I want it to, but it's probably more for show than anything. But we can all hope that it does clean up the game a little bit and it's more transparent.
Well, to me, I think, and this is what we've heard from most people, that when we ask them for their commentary on this subject, is that they're just looking for uniform rules from track to track to track to track, right? So a horse so a horse that's, can qualify in California, if Lasix is used under certain conditions, that same horse can use Lasix under the same conditions in Arkansas, so that you're not getting from one track to the next track, from one state to the next state, different sets of rules. And then, and the same thing is, like, we've heard this from jockeys too, from state to state to state with whipping, right?
Yeah. I mean, how hard is that to know in the middle of the race where you're at and what you're doing? So yeah, I agree with that.
So as long as there's uniform rules, and then everybody knows exactly how to play. And I think that will be the benefit of it, but I don't think it begins and ends in one place. Because one thing we've learned about government in all throughout humanity is that it tends to start with a little bit of power, and that power always seems to grow. And every now and then, as Lord Acton says, absolute power absolutely corrupts eventually. Right, Shawn?
Right, exactly.
Finally, he's doing, what are you talking about? The Pegasus, we talked a little bit about that yesterday, and we opened up the show with talking about the Pegasus Entertainment. I don't know what the rules are, Shawn, in terms of like fair use policy from clipping videos from YouTube. I was going to clip a little bit of a YouTube video, but DJ Cassidy, Shawn and I both were kind of watching him for the first time before the show started. And he's got a pretty little interesting concept of what he does. He's going to be the entertainment for the main entertainment for the Pegasus. And essentially what he does is it's kind of like a bridge between a bunch of different artists where he's a DJ in the middle. And for example, he had on Nelly, if you may recall his song, It's Getting Hot in Here. And then he had Gladys Knight on a little bit later on, where she had that Midnight Train to Georgia, if you remember that. He's on the midnight train to Georgia. Kind of song that almost makes you want to cry when you listen to it. It sounds so good.
Only when Rich sings.
Hey, when I sing, you more than want to guess me to sing. I've said this many times with Terry, who's watching the show tonight. Thank you for joining us today, Terry, for being a team player, my friend. But I've said many times, I'm thinking about going out for America's Got Talent, or the one with the.
I heard that. And I heard I was the dancer of horse racing today, too. I got that clip.
TikTok dancer, yes. Yeah. With tools. You're going to be juggling chainsaws, Shawn.
Yeah, maybe one day.
But if you haven't yet, go on over to YouTube. I don't know how to clip them. I don't want any copyright claims against us, because I don't want any copyright claims against us. We've been down that road and don't want to travel that road again. But if you head on over to YouTube and you just put in DJ Cassidy, you'll see what he kind of does. And it actually is kind of cool. I liked it. So, and it's not like a one type of music. He crosses a lot of different genres and tries to mesh them all together. And it really sounded really good, Shawn.
Yeah, and they listed a few people that would be there, and then they also said some surprises as well. So
Yeah, the surprise is going to be me. I'm making my singing debut.
There you go. There you go.
I'm going to do It's Getting Hot in here.
Now I'll have to make sure somebody's there to record this so we can see this live.
Oh, yes. You can't miss that. That's going to be earth-shattering. It's going to be like, for me, one of those moments like that, like when you're watching TV and you see an entertainer, and when he just does something or she does something and it's just captivating, right? And it's a moment that's etched forever in your mind. I can think of one moment in my life like that. I don't know what was like the music awards or the Grammys. I think it might have been the Grammys. I'm not or American Music Awards. I don't remember what it was. But when Michael Jackson broke out the moon dance, I happened to be watching that night. And when he did that moon dance, man, the next day at school, every kid was trying to do the moon dance. It was one of those like transformational moments. So maybe what I'll do is when I'm doing my show, I will break out the moon dance, Shawn.
There you go. If you didn't get your Pegasus ticket yet, now it's the price of admission. If it wasn't already, it should be already. But now added,
it's doubled, my friend. Absolutely,
there you
for
go.
sure. And if you played our picks today for Terry and I at Gulfstream Parks, you're going to be more than able. I mean, I made up for my cold day yesterday. Terry and I had a very strong day. As we mentioned, CC Perkinson had a great day as well. Horse went off. We definitely, I think, impacted the odds on that horse, Shawn, to the negative. Tomorrow, Terry and I will be back at, hopefully, 12 o'clock Eastern, so that we can run through the full card at Aqueduct. We'll have our hot dog. We'll have our prime rib pick fours. We'll have our best bets, our box it up. And then tomorrow night, we are scheduled to have our guest be Chantel Sutherland. That show will start at 9:30 p.m., Shawn. And hopefully before then, we'll have a Q&A back from her. I sent off some questions to her. What did you think of the questions?
Awesome questions. I mean, you do your research and you come up with awesome questions. No one can ever question that.
No one can ever question. My singing, you question that, right, Shawn? But my questions, they're unquestionable.
No, your questions and your research. I mean, your research is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, I appreciate that. I want people to say that about my horse racing pick, Shawn. All right, my man. It's day 3, first week in the books for horse racing and horse center. I don't even know the name. But what do you think about the first week so far?
Oh, I love it. And we started off with a bang with the 3 guests. Pablo Morales, been really hot, back-to-back Saturdays with 5 wins, and CC Perkinson, who goes out today and has a winner, and then Craig Braddick, who's been a great announcer and a great mentor will be a great mentor, was mentored, and great for the sport. So we'll see who
we have, what kind of surprises we have in store for next week, because we don't know.
Yeah, Rich finds the news on the fly. I find the guest on the fly. I update you guys on social, and
then we just throw it all in the bowl, turn it. We hit the button, go live, and we see what the heck happens.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this show, right?
And it was great already in week 1, so it's only going to get better.
Yes, it's only going to get better from here. All right, Shawn, I got no picks tonight. I've given out 2 winners 2 nights in a row. I know you ain't got nothing tonight. I'm hoping for Duke to win by 6 because I put a parlay together last night thinking Duke was playing last night and they're playing today.
Well, I actually did have 2 picks. I don't know how they're doing
tonight. All right, what do you
I
got?
had Central Florida over Memphis.
We need stuff that's coming up, not that's over.
I know. I don't even know what the score is, and I had Dallas and the Knicks over 204.5. I do not know what the score is.
Yeah, but we need I give out games that are yet to be played. You're giving out ones that are done.
Well, I gave it out
week,
on Monday night.
Next week, you have to give out games that are yet to be played. All right, Shawn, I'll see you tomorrow night, hopefully with Chantel Sutherland. We look forward to that. We'll be back on Monday night, Shawn and I. We don't know who the guest will be, but we'll let you know as soon as we know. Till then, folks, we hope that every single one of your picks, we have to come up with a different close. I haven't thought of it yet, Shawn, but for now, we hope that your picks and your day end up in the
winner circle. Take that, Terry.
Absolutely. Have a fantastic Wednesday night. See you all tomorrow.